I think that would be a pretty satisfying ending. Like in the last episode, we see Saitama fight Orochi. Maybe that ending is retconned as well. Maybe Saitama defeats Orochi with a serious move or something, because maybe they want to keep that, streak going, like season 1 and season 2 ended with a serious move. So maybe Saitama does a serious move to Orochi, but also that would make Orochi way more powerful since he survived a serious move from Saitama, because Orochi obviously comes back in his heart form later on. So as I'm sure you're aware, this is the Saitama versus Orochi redraw that we've been waiting for close to a year now, I think. And this is pretty much the same thing that they did with the Child Emperor versus Phoenix Man redraws. As where both of these original fights were kind of just superlative combat sequences and were pretty clear cut with definitive outcomes. But now they have less superlative action sequences, seriously bumped up the dialogue and exposition, and of course for deepening these characters, but also seriously setting up the end game of the series. And I'm on board with it. I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's unfortunate that we're losing the grandness of the previous iterations, but I'm sure they'll be back eventually in their own way. Also, if you like getting these One Punch Man translations so quick, you should consider checking out VibHav's Patreon. He and his team put the One Punch Man community on their backs, and they really do deserve support. Links in the description. So we're picking up from the new chapter 113 and 114. In 113, we had the new sequence of Saitama knocking out Rover, and in the new 114, that leads to the new sequence of Saitama encountering Orochi. If you would like to know about all of the other redraws and retcons that have happened in the series so far, feel free to check out my playlist. But anyway, just like before, Saitama is easily busting Orochi's dragons. So just like in the original version, Orochi is aware that Saitama has like this pressure about him, and also figures out that he was in fact a ghost town of Z City. But instead of him being interested in Saitama because he sees him as a worthy challenge, he's now interested in Saitama because he is the perfect sacrifice for his resurrection. Now, another thing that is being retconned here is his face. Now, when we originally saw Orochi, it looked like he was wearing a mask, and I thought it was, but turned out that it was just a part of his form. But no, not anymore. Now is in fact a mask, which is hiding the true form of Orochi, which we see here. This is his new true form, which is retconning his original true form, which was, I don't know, like Meteoric Burst Orochi. Now he looks more Lovecraftian. And then he's like, hey Saitama, I've got so much exposition to explain to you. So let's just go to the very bottom and talk about it down there. And I guess they're falling into lava or really hot water or something. Saitama refers to it as water in this chapter, but it looks like lava, so I don't really know what's going on with it, but it's just a really hot liquid. But the other interesting thing here is we're seeing the altar that we saw in chapter 139. When Tatsumaki finishes off Orochi with the giant drill, we saw that in the background, and at that time we didn't know what to make of it because it was the first time that we saw it, but it turns out that we were actually supposed to see it many chapters beforehand. So then it turns out that Orochi found this place himself, and not even Psychos knows about it. And then after this, Orochi explains his origin, pretty much the same stuff that we found out in chapter 92. But here he says, through sacrifices he became powerful. So I guess that means like from eating monsters, he became stronger. But going further, he says, before long, the sacrifices Giro had to offer were not enough to satisfy Orochi, until one day he instinctually, I like that, began venturing further into the earth's depths in an attempt to drain energy directly from the deepest parts of the earth. So basically what this means is he reached like a plateau from gaining power-ups from the sacrifices, which I guess eating the monsters or draining their energy or something. And since Psychos couldn't find any stronger sacrifices at this point, but Orochi needed to become stronger, and instinctually he felt that he could attain that by going into the core of the earth. But coincidentally, on his way there, he came across this altar rune. And another coincidence is that on the mural, straight up Orochi himself. And on top of that, Orochi is somehow able to understand this ancient language. And it says, crossing the vast expanse of time, our God shall resurrect on this earth, when on this altar altar, a worthy sacrifice is offered. And then Orochi interpreted this as him being a prophesized god or something, and that if a strong enough sacrifice is put on the altar, then he will resurrect. So I guess he thinks that he'll either ascend to godlyhood or become a new being or something. And after he figured this out, he put that mask on and then acted subservient to Psychos while she gave him sacrifices, hoping that one day it would be strong enough to complete this ritual. And that's why he brought Saitama down here, because he believes that he is that destined sacrifice. And speaking of Saitama, he's just casually and unintentionally pulling off some crazy feats of power in this chapter, just straight up bathing in this lava here. Then after witnessing this, Orochi gets the bright idea to stick his tail into the earth and literally siphon energy from the core and straight up shoot Saitama with it. But then in response to the Gaia Cannon, Saitama shows a new serious move, and this time it's the serious squirt gun. Yeah, Saitama is just very powerfully shooting water out of his hands, or lava, whatever this liquid is. And this is pretty much the closest that we're gonna get to see Saitama shooting like a beam cannon or something, I guess. And you guessed it, this thing is so powerful, it just blows away Orochi's Gaia Cannon. Then he gives Orochi the one punch, which he survives, like he did originally, but this time more conscious and more put together than he was. Then we see him crawling up the altar, and it starts to crumble, and it reveals what the full mural is, and we see none other than God. Yes, the same God that we were introduced to in chapter 138. Then in the final page it says the prophetic mural, its full picture remaining unseen by anyone, once again returned to the depths of the earth. And that's where the chapter ends. So, key word here, prophetic. This is pretty much Shibawa's prophecy, I guess, right? Because on the mural it says, crossing the vast expanse of time, our God shall resurrect on this earth, when on this altar a worthy sacrifice is offered. And Orochi on the altar turns out to not be the God who is being resurrected, but he is in fact the worthy sacrifice to bring forth the god, or at least in theory he was. He no longer is, because Saitama just, nerfed him to his deathbed. But yeah, I guess this is what Shibawa is seeing. This comes to fruition. So at some point in the series, this altar is going to come back, and we're going to see a worthy sacrifice placed on it, and through the great expanse of time, God will come to Earth. So I guess that's also giving us more insight into what's going on with God. Vast expanse of time can mean a lot of things, and I don't want to speculate about all of it in this video, because now I'm gonna have to make a separate one dedicated to all that stuff. So this is not the end of the redraws. I think we're getting 1 or 2 more after this, maybe 4 at the most. And what I think is going to happen in the follow-up chapter, or one of them, is Orochi will be on the altar and God will start to speak to him and say that like he's not strong enough, but he can give him the ability to become strong enough. And then he's going to turn Orochi into that goop stuff that we saw him become. And that will explain why Psychos is instantly able to see God once she fuses with Orochi. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video today, guys. I'm going to make a follow-up to this one, talking about the prophecy and God and all that stuff. But let me know what you think about this chapter, what you think about the retcons. If you liked it, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.